Like we're live. What's happening, everybody? Hope everybody's having a fantastic whatever day you're watching this. So, if you're watching this and it's not live, or you're catching the thumbnail before you join us live, you'll know that we're talking about cost. But it's the obnoxious cost of what these vehicles are. Well, it's what they're getting these days. It absolutely floors me. And what I wanted to do is visit with you guys for a hot minute and talk a little bit about where that new Charger may fall in line, where the new Mustang falls in line with the costing of their trucks, and talk a little bit more about what might be expected from that new Charger. There's a lot of you guys that have told me that you are secretly closeted, waiting, holding, saving up your dollars and dimes to possibly get into one of these newer cars. One of the things that I've heard, though, the most is there's a concern about that car. Well, let's just say that folks are worried about durability, and rightfully so. I mean, if you're going to be taking on a new, hold on. So all your chat are belong to us. Love it. All your base are belong to us is what Colt followers referencing. Good one, by the way, Colt. Well done. One of the things that a lot of folks have mentioned is a worrying about durability. I can tell you that it will be as durable as any other Dodge that's out there. So I'm not really worried so much about that. Or you should be frightened to death of that. One of the things that I'm most concerned with, though, is what is the performance envelope going to be of this car at what could end up being well over $70,000. Now, the thumbnail that I posted up, guys, that is for a truck. That is the lowest amount of dollars that you can spend on the pickup truck to get the HO engine. That's what that is. Basically, 79,000 whole ass dollars. I don't know what that gets you. I mean, it's a 4-wheel drive truck. It's got some doodads and some bobbles. I get that, but it's 80 whole ass $1,000. That is a boatload to ask. This is why the question is relevant. The current going rate for, and this is, I'm just going to compare it to what's out there right now. The current going rate of a Mustang to get a 5-liter engine in it, the only V8 that's offered, the going rate for that car is for a very well optioned Recaro, not the dark horse, but everything else you can probably put on one of those cars is about $64,000. An extremely well appointed 5-liter powered 4-wheel drive truck can check in anywhere between $62,000 and $66,000. So they're basically the same price. Okay, fine. It's not the top of the range, right? But you wouldn't expect it to be. But this is going to be the only car offering that Dodge has. The only car offering that you're actually interested in looking at, I should say. What are you willing to spend for it? If a regular pickup truck that doesn't have the HO in it, the HO Hurricane 6, if that truck is going to sell for, say, 52 to 56, does that price make more sense? Well, if Scat Pack pricing has anything to say about it, maybe, and that might be what you could expect to pay for a rear-wheel drive only standard output, the 420 horse. So maybe $47,000 to $50,000 there. But are we looking at a $75,000 or $80,000 Charger? What would your take be on that? Let me also remind you that $71,000 to $75,000 will put you behind the wheel of a Hellcat right now. Let that sink in for a minute. So you're basically going to be paying Hellcat money for this car. Does that grip you in any way? Now, speaking of grip, the four-wheel drive or all-wheel drive system that's in that car is presumably going to allow you to get the kind of numbers that you could only dream of on the street with a Hellcat because it's rear-wheel drive only. It'll basically allow you to get drag strip numbers on the street. That's fantastic, but I guess the main culprit here is the six-cylinder. Are you going to be happy? Are you buying a six-cylinder four-wheel drive car with about 150 less horsepower than the Hellcat for Hellcat money? Question mark. I don't know. Let me check in with you guys though. DM is in. Got the cadence down with the flex and the bald guy with the shades. Colt is in with the flex. I like it. So here's the idea that I've got, guys. Here's the problem that I have. If you're willing to spend that kind of money for that car, what are your expectations of it? Are you going to be first to the track with that thing? Are you going to be running that car at a drag strip ever? Does it even matter because it's all-wheel drive? Here's kind of another place that I'm at with this. As y'all know, many of you know, viewers of the show anyway, I recently bought an F-150, decked out XLT with the Coyote engine in it, 331 gears. That truck has scratched every itch I ever had for a performance vehicle. It's got all the drive modes. It's all-wheel drive, four-wheel drive, I should say, technically. So I can play with it on the street. It's fun. I can goof off with it, and it's big. It's a utility vehicle. And in really good air, the thing will damn near hit 60 in 4 seconds. Now, I do still need to put a tune on it, if for no other reason than to kill the speed limiter. But it would be cool as hell, right, if there was a car that would allow you to do the same thing. Something with 550 or 600 horsepower. Something that would allow you to play with it on the street and not have to take it to a drag strip. But does it still have the same sex appeal? And you know what I mean by that. I mean, we're not really talking about cars like this in the manner that you would talk about something that is a lot flashier. But the reality is, from what we've seen so far, these things don't really have a whole lot of curb appeal. So the only thing that they can give you is a certain level of performance on the street that you couldn't get with any other vehicle. Well, that's pretty cool to talk about. But it lacks in one characteristic that Dodge has been cramming down our throat. I mean, casting couch kind of ways. And that's the V8. Where's the Hemi in all of this? Where is the marketing in all of this? Guys, we're out of the first quarter of 2024. These are 2025 vehicles. Presumably, we should be seeing these things really start to land here in the next 3 to 6 months. We're not seeing anything coming from marketing. We're not seeing anything coming from the folks that should be very interested in selling us one of these cars. So my question to you is this. Have any of you guys gone to your dealership to find out if they have pricing on these cars yet? Has anything that you've seen leaked out yet about what these cars are going to cost? And for all of you guys that are out there in the future watching this, did you overpay for this thing? What did you feel about the car after you bought it? Did you pay $65,000, $75,000, $80,000? And did you find out that, well, maybe the juice quite wasn't worth the squeeze, or is it that much better? It's kind of hard to say. I don't know. Colt's saying, no way is Dodge going to have room for the 25s, 24s, and 23s are going to be in the lots all year at these prices for sure. That's right. Gary's saying, hello, everyone. D. Mason, I almost got done installing the high roller cam setup. Oh, nice one. Complete about 2 more days. Very nice. Don't forget to check your valve clearance. Cole's talking about his wife and a Tesla. Here's the funny thing. Mine will not allow any kind of, and I mean none, and I'm the same way, no EVs in our house. By the way, we just had, I don't know if it's an EV or not, but one of the parking garage just caught fire in Houston. So I don't know if that was somebody's EV that decided to pop into flames, but yeah, fun stuff. Hey Gary, what springs did you went with the 1516s with the high roller, right? What push rods did you go with? Just I can't remember off the top of my head. Let's see. In fact, I've got my computer right here. Let me look at something. I think the last time that cam went into anything, that was a supercharged, it was a ProCharge 392. I believe. Let me see something. This recently got through putting one together for Pikes. As a matter of fact, CD 57 SC for a supercharged 5.7 liter with a centrifugal supercharger. That is going to be a fun one. Let me see something here. Control F, high roller. Quit it. Anyway, yeah, the high roller is a pretty fun camshaft. Not too crazy, not out of the realm. Easier to tune, by the way. Will make really good power up top. So, but it's an easier cam to tune than some of the other like super tight LSA stuff that super tight LSA, but super short. Well, short by comparison duration cams. Those were catching a little bit of steam of late, but they can be a little bit annoying because you're working like instead of like I'm not gonna barf your specs, but instead of like what a high roller spec would look like, there are some that are out there that are like 218, 220, and like 228, 226, but they're 600 lift cams, and so they've got this real aggressive load profile. And they're tight. They're at like a 109 or a 1. I've seen 107 lobe separation angles. So they are rowdy sounding, but they make a boatload of mid-range torque, but they can be a little bit rowdy. Oh, Gary saying, let's see, came with the packs. Yeah, don't put the packs, but I put in the 15, 16 springs, came with 8-inch push rods, exhaust, measured spot on. Intake rods were 6775. They are all fine, but might tighten that up some. I think you'll be okay with that. Main thing is just making sure they're at least 080s. So you are in good shape, my man. But always check, man. You just never know. And I always say check piston and valve clearance. So that people go, well, you don't know your cams. Like, no, I don't know the dude that's cutting it. So yeah, always rotate. You can plastic gauge it if you want, but usually if they don't, you're going at 109 quarter. Let's see. That's exactly where it would fall in place. So 109 ICL, intake valve open 4, exhaust valve closed -2. But I've saved you a little bit of room on the exhaust side with that cam. That's one of the reasons why I did that. Why the cam split looks like that is to gain you a little bit of room on the exhaust side, just in case. So it's a good little cam. Hey, you're gonna like it. There's another one that was similar to that, but it's a tighter LSA. And I probably wouldn't recommend it. It's a cam. It's called the Hitman grind that I came up with. 083s. There you go. There you go. You can go 083 if you want. 080s are good, but yeah, You're good. Yeah, and that's going to be a good street cam for you. There's another one that I did, Hitman, that looks just like the high roller, but it's got a tight LSA. It's ground on a 112. And those are some. God, and then you got the sniper, which is also another good one. The high roller, where the high roller differs from the sniper, is on the exhaust side. The high roller was so all of my camshafts have names associated with them, and they all have double meanings. So Contender, Wildcat, Joker, which a lot of y'all know the Joker grind. The Enforcer, the Apollo, the Tomcat, the Grinder, the Sniper, the Hitman, the High Roller, the Warlock, and the Mammoth. The Mammoth was going to be called the Eye Roller. So, and that one's pretty healthy. And then I've got Demonology's cam that I did for him. And that one it never had an official name, but it's called the Reaper. And then everything that I do for pikes it's got a CD attached to it. That's kind of an inside joke with us, but it's not really a joke. It's a method of installation. It's the cradle dropper, but dropping the cradle of cams. But anyway, so each cam has its own. I know we're completely off topic here, but well, if you want to know camshaft specs, by the way, I mean this is all my. Well, you can see that because it's detached, but this is my Excel spreadsheet with all my cams on it. Just so you know, if you've never wanted to know, the SRT, the 392 cam. 571 lift on the intake side, 551 on the exhaust side. Intake duration is 215 on the intake side, 221 on the exhaust, and it's got 120.5 degree ground lobe separation angle. Just in case you've ever wondered. If you ever wonder what the Demon camshaft is, it's extremely similar to a Hellcat grind on the exhaust side, but it's got more duration on the intake. So the Demon the Hellcat is the same, 215 on the intake side, 240 on the exhaust on a 120. The Demon is 223 on the intake side, 240 on the exhaust on a 123, both of them 561 and 551, respectively, intake and exhaust. Ever wonder what your 5.7 is? It's 499 lift on the intake side with a 187 duration. These are all at 50, by the way, and 493 and 205 on the exhaust. LSA, fun fact, on the 5.7 is 115 degrees, which is not all that bad. Intake center line's at 102. It is rocked way over, but keep in mind that's so that you can rock that thing back. But yeah, fun fact on that. By the way, yes, anytime I say fun fact, you must partake. The 115 for the 5.7 makes it pretty good for forced induction, especially if we're talking about Pro Chargers, because contrary to what you might think, if you've got a Pro Charger, the idea is to tighten up your LSA as much as you possibly can. Make that thing rowdy down low, because what you're doing is you're going to try to make as much mid-range as you possibly can and then hang that thing on the compressor on the back end to make power. You have to remember, anytime you widen up your LSA, what you're doing is you're cracking your exhaust valve earlier. So a lot of people think that, well, somehow or another, it's hard. You have to, in camshaft brain talk, we always think the exhaust side first, because that's what dictates what you're reeling in through the intake valve. But yeah, the wider the LSA, you're actually cracking the exhaust earlier, and you're making your intake runner of your, well, in this case, intake runner of the intake manifold, but you're making the intake side, you're making the intake valve a lot more active. And that's the reason why it'll make a lot more power up top, is because you've eliminated a lot of pumping losses on your compressions. Anyway, I can bore you to tears with it. I know this is getting really nerdy. So let me get back to you guys real quick. But yeah, you're at 109, so you're in good shape, brother. Thanks again. You're welcome, sir. Xane asking, if you're the CEO of Dodge, what would your 5 to 10 year plan be, Professor B? I would first of all already have a 5.5 liter, either 5.3, 5.5, or 5 point whatever. It's somewhere in the like the 5.3 to 5.5, 5.6 liter dual overhead cam. Basically, I would clone the Coyote however I could, and make that thing as durable as absolutely possible. Have it come in at, with a dual fuel system so that you can make this thing work for emissions. Have it come in at between 11.5 and 12 to 1 compression, and have this thing make around 440 horsepower and about 430 pound-feet of torque. That's the first thing that I would be doing. The second thing is I would be looking at ways to improve upon the Hurricane moving forward. In this case, it would be more displacement and less boost, and making sure that every engine that is offered is flex fuel compatible. That's what I would be doing. I would focus performance, focus with the V8 with some performance areas. Try to do something to bring back some modicum of the Viper in some way, shape, or form. Only because it would make sense. Do it with a true slush box or 6-speed. Make the Hurricane one way or another available with a manual transmission. And that's what I would do with Dodge cars. I would keep steady track on the Durango, and have a clear path for what that market needs to look like, both Durango and crossovers. I would make sure that I had a small city car in play. I would make sure that I had a small electric car in play that would also work well as a city vehicle. For Ram, I would look at EV couriers. I would look at making sure that you got the Revolution, which was the Ram, supposed to be the Ram EV truck. Get that thing in the mix somehow or another. Make the freaking HO inline 6 available in every iteration, and offer up that same V8 in the truck platform. So that's what I would do with Dodge and Ram. With Jeep, I would do away with that 3.6 liter. It's junk. I would figure out a way to put a V8 in that thing that would at least make sense, talking about the Wrangler. Or if nothing else, pull the turbos out of a 4-liter inline 6, use the same architecture, give it a longer stroke if it's possible within the confines of the block itself. Pull the turbos off of it and get a naturally aspirated 6-cylinder in that thing that actually makes torque, not just horsepower. By the way, if you've never driven one of the Wranglers with a 3.6 liter, it's one of the most disappointing driving experiences you can ever hope to have. My wife's 3.8 liter is more satisfying to drive than the 3.6, and the 3.6 makes like another 100 horsepower almost. Thing's terrible down low. By the time that thing starts making power, it's not enough to have waited on. I can promise you that. X is saying, I will partake with alcohol, free IPA. I like it. Oh, Kurt's asking, a couple of broken fins on an unused diff I got for cheap. Should I worry? No, don't worry about that at all, man. It's more common for them to be chipped than not chipped in many cases. At least it used to be. So yeah, don't sweat it. As long as there's no actual crack and it's just like a chipped tooth, don't sweat it. You're fine. Let's see. Eric is in. What's up, my man? Glad to see you. DM saying, hello, Eric. X saying, they need to make you CEO. This is a super solid plan. I would love to at least have a part of it. That's for sure. Eric's checking back in with DM, and Kurt saying, thanks, man. Absolutely. Yeah, so what's funny is that there were, so we would, since I was the guy that would strap down the Hellcats to the dyno, the guys that would swap gears, it was real easy to tell which ones had swapped gears because they were missing fins. I don't know what happened. Like, what happened to this one? I don't know, probably broken shipping. That's UPS or FedEx for you, bud. Margo's saying you didn't hear your question. What questions you give? Hold up. Wait a minute, Marco. Where you at up here, bro? Oh, here you are. Marco's saying building. Where'd everybody go? I didn't even see Destroyers in. What's up, homie? Salute, Professor. Salute, Destroyer. Didn't see you in here either. Marco's saying build an old D150 with a 6.4 or a C10 with a 6.4. So D150 with a 6.4 would be fun, but expensive. A C10, I mean, I wouldn't put a 6.4 in a C10. I would go LS3 all day, every day. LS3 is just too good. It's too easy to work on. And the heads flow every bit as much as the Hemi heads. So, but if I had a free 6.4 laying around and a D150 that just happened to land outside the front of the shop, the first thing I'd do is get D150 or not it's E150, I think would it be, the van lower control arms to drop the front, drop the back, cross member and everything to go 6.4 with a nag 1 or 8-speed. I'd probably rather have the nag 1 though, just because they can be a little bit more robust, and when you build them they're not as bad, but you can just go stock, I suppose. Cheaper, but if you could source the entire drive line, and I know that DSS makes swap shafts, so you could go with the flange up front and the U-joint out back. Terminator X standalone controller, and let her rip at that point. Everything else would pretty much just be normal mechanical stuff. And I would probably, because of the weight of the thing, I probably wouldn't even put a cam in it. I would probably just leave it stock. Put a set of long tubes on it and let her eat. That'd be a fun truck. There's one that I was hoping this guy wouldn't do anything with, and I could talk him out of it. There's a D150 that was that like that baby shit brown color, and I really wanted that truck. I thought it'd make such a neat just cruise around town, you know, nothing more than like a 2-hour jaunt here and there. But what I wanted to do is do a full-on Hemi swap, and it looks like freaking Steve Dulcich basically beat me to the build because two things. One, the guy ended up keeping the truck and he repainted it, which to me was a complete, like, oh my God, the truck looks so good just in the natural state that it was in. But I would have just done the normal, 390, just what I just got through mentioning, 392, either with a nag 1 or with a 8-speed, or I would try to replicate the D100 that I helped to tune, which was a 6.1 with a nag 1. And that truck had 373 gears. And that's one of the few vehicles that I wished never left the shop. In fact, I even offered to buy that truck. And it came up for sale. And I want to say it sold for about $60,000. But man, I tell you what, worth every penny of that. That truck was so good to drive. So that was one of the vehicles that, me and that truck were just like fast friends, man. So anyway, I would have tried to replicate a build much like that. Now that I'm thinking about it, though, I probably would put something like the high roller in it and just, I don't know. I would probably, take that back. I would probably throw the Hitman in that thing and just use the stock intake manifold. That thing would be rowdy, though. That'd be good. That'd be some good stuff. Put a 1 7/8 headers on it with a 3-inch exhaust running through it'd have an X pipe running through some MagnaFlows. Let's see. There we go. Got Marco in the mix. HU saying, is your F-150 flex fuel? Yes, it is. If it is, have you tried E85? You damn right I did. If you tried E85, what were your impressions? Every car should have E85. Dude, listen. How can I explain how much fun this truck is for some nerd like me? Dude, I got to tell you something. So E85 so you have in these types of vehicles, the way that the Ford, you've got basically two different timing tables that it'll go off of. It always adjusts. Well, I say that. I will show you if you will let me hold please, and I will tell you exactly how this works. Let me, oh crap. This is funny though. I have to have my MPVI 3 attached to this thing so I can even read my file. I can't do a read file on my personal truck because the computer has to be unlocked even just to do a read file. But let me show you guys what I'm talking about when I'm talking about different timing values. Let me get this bad boy fired up. But what the Ford does, it's actually pretty freaking slick. What it will do is it will, at 65% ethanol, it basically assumes that you want all the power right now, all the time. So it gives you the most timing and everything, but it will infer your octane rating, or at least it will infer your ethanol content. And from that, it infers an octane. So let me do that too. Let me pull up. I think I was logging that on my last log. So let me pull that up for you. Anyway, it's really trick. And so the cool thing about it is that you can, in essence, have multiple timing tables as you have multiple levels of ethanol in your tank. And as you are, sorry, I did a 0 to 60 with my truck in 4-wheel drive in the rain. It was literally raining when I did this, and I filmed it, and I need to figure out where this is because it's raining when I made the hit, and it 0 to 60 in 5.6 seconds in the rain, which I thought was just one of the funniest things ever. I mean, you can do the same thing with a Ram. I'm just, well, maybe not that fast, but you know what I'm saying. Let me see something here under logs. Was I monitoring inferred? You have an inferred stoichiometric at equivalence ratio. Let me see if I've got my knock octane modifier. Let me see. There's an inferred. Let's see. Bear with me here. I'll try to show you guys what I'm talking about. Inferred stoichiometric air value. Okay. Knock octane modifier. So here's the thing. Oh, I can't unplug it all. Anyway, this is all screwed up. This is technology at its finest. This is what it looks like right where it's right with the highlighted part where knock octane modifier. Basically, it doesn't have, in this case, it didn't have enough to kick it up. But what it will do is it's got an inferred stoichiometric air fuel ratio. That's what's highlighted right now. And what that means is I've still got, it's a mix of gasoline and ethanol. And so what it will do is it will randomly just start throwing timing, well, not randomly, it will, under certain high load conditions, it'll just add timing. So you have a base timing value. And because you have an inferred stoichiometric air fuel ratio, that tells it, because it has an ethanol fuel content, in this case, of what is highlighted now, 32%, it knows that it can add timing. So instead of knock retard, you have, hold please, what is right now highlighted, I think it's just idling, it'll say knock correction. And so what you'll see in that table is what it'll show up as knock retard if you're used to reading Mopar. It's not. It's actually adding timing. So when it sees that it can, it just throws more timing at it, which is pretty cool. So in saying all of that, oh, and the way that it infers it, it knows how much fuel it has to add to get to a stoichiometric value. So that's where that comes from. I get to my spark table, spark advance. MBT. I have 26. This is going to be kind of hard to show you guys. These are MBT tables, so they're not, this isn't what it's going to command. Let me do this. That's borderline spark knock. It's kind of about right. Anyway, you have a grand total of 28, starting with map 0 going to what would be map 27 or optimum power. And that would be all of this stuff right here. Yeah, borderline spark knock and then MBT, which is the absolute most timing it'll let it throw at it. But if you notice, again, you've got a lot of different maps, and that's what it'll do. It'll start pulling from different maps, and I'll just pick one here at random. This is a borderline map 15. Not that it really matters, but in this case, I mean, I can show you, just grab it, but without context or without anything to compare it to, that doesn't really mean anything. But long story short is that it can pull from all kinds of different tables to get you the kind of power that you may be requesting, or at least give you an amount of power that will work. Now, a lot of these are zeroed out. The ones that actually work are probably 1 through 12, quite frankly. For the older trucks, they have more maps, but this is what we've got to work with the Flex technology. So, yeah, it makes a difference on the Coyote because, this is a long way to get to that, it's got a dual fuel system. Not that it's flex fuel. That's not what I'm talking about. A dual fuel, meaning that it is a direct port and a rail injection. So it's leaning heavily on the direct port for the fueling, which means that I don't saturate the airflow coming into the engine with fuel. There's just a little bit there to keep the valves clean. What it's doing is it's allowing basically only air to come through the intake manifold with a little bit of fuel to keep the valves clean, but that's very inconsequential in this respect. But in this case, all of the fueling takes place on the compression stroke. So it's not hindered at all by it being the airflow. It's not hindered, or it's not displaced. So you can have a ton of air come through there, and you can use that air to burn the fuel that's in the combustion chamber, as opposed to like with a Ram or with a Hemi. When you go to E85, you're putting so much fuel into the airstream that you're displacing some of the air. In essence, you're reducing the displacement capacity of the engine by choking it off with an air dam or a fuel dam, if you will, almost. It's just you're injecting fuel where you really need to be drawing air through there. So, but yes, I love it. It's awesome. Eric is in. Mark is asking, favorite old school muscle car, 70 to 90, top threes you would buy. That is tough. So, first one that comes to mind, there's actually two that come to mind right off the bat. So the first one would be it'd be the Vanishing Point Challenger. It'd be a 1970 or 1971 440 Challenger with a 4-speed. The second one, no, well, not really second. These are all in the mix. 1970 Buick GS Stage 1 would probably be either number 1 or number 2 also. Um, God, with a hmm. Those would be the first two that come to mind. And then after that would be a 1970 um, 454 Corvette with a 4-speed T-top car. Uh, oh, Eric's saying, "What's up with Gary?" Cool. But those would be the ones I would. I mean, there's so many to pick from, and that's the other thing. I mean, when you start, the problem when you start picking cars like that too is that, God, there's so many other ones that are out there. Like from 1970, there's nothing in the 80s or 90s that I would really gravitate towards muscle carish. I would say, I mean, you've got some really cool stuff, but it's almost like you've got some really cool cars that are out there, but some of them are just so cool that you almost wouldn't want to drive them. And then the other cars that I like are the mid-century cars. But the only problem that I have with those is that the braking systems are shitty. So I probably would never go that route. But man, it is hell to beat a vet for me. C3 Corvette, any of the big block variants would be good. Or any of the LT1s, frankly, would be good too. So probably something along those lines. There's really nothing. I mean, the Cuda from Dodge or Plymouth would be cool. And of course, a 70 Charger, just because a 70 Charger in that context is still a really cool car. I've got a weird thing with Chargers. I love the car circa Bullitt, the black 440 Chargers from Bullitt. Yes. In fact, I lived down the street from a guy when I was in Northern California that had built a clone of that car. So good. So something along those lines, yeah. But it just got a little bit weirded out, and they keep dragging the name through the mud these days, and that's kind of one of the things. It's like, God, you're making it not cool. By taking something that's cool and commercializing the piss out of it, you're making it less cool every time you do that. So I don't know, just kind of my 2 cents on that deal. Sovereign Zen, hey B, hey folks. Eric's checking in with Sovereign. Hello. Sovereign saying Resto Mod. Yeah, the thing is, man, it's hard. Talking about Resto Mods, I put a cam together. This is about 2 years ago. I put a cam together. In fact, it looked a lot like the High Roller for a guy that was repowering a 69. Was it a 69? I think it was a 69 Charger. Sorry, 69 Roadrunner. God, I almost messed that up. 69 Roadrunner. It was a nice car, but it just didn't, I don't know. There was something about it that just seemed a little bit off. You know what I mean? Like it was just off enough, and I never drove it, but there was something about that car. I love it. It was really pretty, but called AMC Eagle Ultimate Muscle Car. Funny you should mention the Eagle. Those things, if you're not familiar with what he's talking about, the AMC Eagle was this all-wheel drive. It's like an Aspen cruiser, not the Dodge Aspen, but I mean like the city of Aspen, Colorado, or like a Denver type car. It's like a Utah type car. It's up in the mountains, up in the high plains, where you're going to get snow. And what it was, and you would have thought that car would have taken off like crazy. I always liked them, but they're all-wheel drive cars that were they came kind of like with a lift kit in a way. Like you'd have thought they'd have done really well in like Norway or Sweden or something like that. Anyway, I always really liked them. I thought they were cool as hell, but unfortunately, they were always desperately underpowered. Well, for the United States, they would have been. Not for overseas, but for the US, they would have been considered underpowered. But I always kind of wanted one in a way. Those cars have ballooned in popularity and value lately. So I think they might have quit making them in like 19, don't quote me, I'm going to say 88 or 89. I don't know when they quit making them. But I saw one for sale not too long, about a year ago, maybe a year ago. I saw one for sale locally recently, or locally was the most recent one that I've ever seen in person. Dude, is there any way to, like, I don't know how you add power to that thing. I have no idea, but I always thought that they were neat. And I know that there were some people that were really like feverishly passionate about those things too. So anyway, if you have no clue what I'm talking about or what Colt's talking about, it's kind of a neat car in a way. Anyway, it's just kind of one of those funny things that, you wonder why can't you bring that back? Why couldn't something cool like that finally ever make it back into production? I don't know. I guess there's just not a lot of call for it, even though it does kind of scratch a lot of itches. I mean, they were kind of utility type cars, but anyway, Sarver's asking me, what about the MR2, like with a V6 upgrade? I had a neighbor that had the centrifugally supercharged MR2, and pretty neat car. Pretty quick, as a matter of fact, too. That's Aspen. You know it. Can't show up without your bags in Aspen. I've got a little place in Aspen. If you South Park reference. Say it with me. Let it roll off your tongue. I have a little place in Aspen. Anyway, yeah, that type of a car though, it was kind of funny that it doesn't really fall too far from the mold that that Dodge and the rest of the not the market, not Ford or Chevrolet, but it was Dodge and AMC. They had some really quirky cars that, man, they weren't, if the United States wasn't the United States, they would have taken off the way, if there was never a muscle car era, some of the stuff that Dodge had would have been, I mean, it would have taken off like gangbusters, but it's just too hard to sell that kind of car in the States. Eric said, I wish AMC would have survived and Chrysler Corporation company could have formed a big company together. Man, that's kind of the thing, man. AMC, it's a bummer because, again, they had some really neat offerings. They just never really took off. I mean, they had the AMX, the Javelin, the Rebel Machine was a cool car. But again, they never had those big power cars, although they kicked ass in SECA competition. And the 401 was no joke if you knew how to build one. I mean, it was if you had the money to build one too. So let's see. Vince is asking, do you think the TRX is a better choice than the Trackhawk? And have you driven the TRX? I have. What do you think about it? Awesome truck. Absolutely love it. Is it a better choice than the Trackhawk? Yeah, I think it is, because where I'm at, well, in a way it is. Because it's just big, it's very utilitarian, and it's got a lot of universal appeal. Where the Trackhawk is a little bit more focused, and you've got to kind of know what it is to even get what you're looking at. You can look at a TRX and understand precisely what you're looking at. So I like the TRX as a vehicle, but between the two, I mean, you pick I like the Trackhawk as a vehicle just in general. I think it's between it and the Durango, they are the most usable of the Hellcat variants on the street in the real world where it matters the most. far and away better. I don't care how many Trackhawks that I've beaten at the drag strip. That's irrelevant because I can't touch one on the street. And the same kind of goes for the TRX too. But if you're not drag racing every day and you just need a truck that's going to be a really cool, really clean, nice truck that is plenty fast, TRX is the way I would go. So we're saying JMC Javelin. Yes, awesome car. Cole say add power to anything if you have a blowtorch and money. You gotta burn through money. So I guess it works together. When saying, and do I think the pink Demon 170 looked beautiful? The video that Racer X posted about a pink Demon. I haven't seen that, but pink is not an uncommon color if you know Mopar well enough. Back in the day, there was somebody that was racing a pink Challenger, and it's the Pepto-Bismol pink, and it was it's like Corning pink, or I forget the name of it. Anyway, yeah, they had pink was one of the colors you could get. So I'll take a TRX over Trackhawk. Yeah, you almost have to. Eric's checking in with Sovereign. Hello. I'm saying I'm not even a truck guy. TRX, yeah, TRX is just good because between the two, again, it makes more sense when you're looking at it. Vince asking, what's a better track car or course car? The new GT500 or ZL1? I'd pick the ZL1 all day, every day. The ZL1. I could run an actual manual transmission in that thing. Saying all hail the Gremlin. A lot of people love the Gremlin. Vince is asking, did I ever consider buying a TRX? I did until I saw the price of a TRX. And then I no longer considered buying a TRX at that point. Just way too expensive. I'm sorry, guys, but I am not a player at $95,000, which is what a new one of those things would have costed. And that brings up, and we're going to wrap it up here in a minute, but that's a great question to end this on. The thumbnail that I put up was for the most powerful but cheapest price that you would pay for a Ram truck. And that number, that $80,000 number is, if you're spending 80, you can afford 90, right? That's the idea. That's where the TRX initially hit the market at. So you would be spending almost the same amount of money on a 550 horsepower truck than you would on a TRX that looks like a TRX. Okay. You've seen a TRX, right? Yeah. That thing looks butch as hell. You'd be spending almost the same amount of money on a truck that nobody, unless you know Ram trucks, can tell you what an HO variant, limited, whatever it is, you can't tell the difference. Okay. So, something's got to give here. The numbers just don't add up. It's not making sense. And the reality is this, the stuff is too expensive, and what you're going to be spending your money on isn't the best that you could get. Even if you did run into something and you wanted to run into some money is what I'm getting at, and you wanted to buy one of the HO variants, you can't run it on E85. It's not flex fuel compatible, which is a joke considering that thing has a higher brake specific output than the Demon 170's engine does. It is the highest amount of power you can buy in Dodge's lineup for sure, and probably many other lineups as well. It's the highest amount of brake specific power that you can buy. In other words, cubic centimeter to cubic centimeter versus power output, the HO at 550 horsepower is the highest you can get. So again, I'm left with more questions than answers when we start getting into the car. If you can't run corn, then what's the point of it? And with the technology that we have, I've got it in a pickup truck. How can you not have it in something with that high a boost, with that kind of compression, making that kind of power with that low of displacement? I don't understand it, and especially for the money. But with that, guys, I got to start wrapping it up. I'm going to catch up with you guys real quick. Let's see. Vince is asking, are the Trackhawks rare? No, not really. Vincent, did people sue over the Hellcat Durango? I don't know of any class action on that. DM saying, I wanted to buy a TRX. What's they wanted? 50 grand over? Yep, that's an absolute joke. Yeah, don't ever spend that kind of money, any kind of money over. HU saying, unfortunately, AMC was late to the performance market. They were, but they did really well in SCCA competitions. Eric saying, remember the AMC Rebel machine car with the 1969, the 401. Actually, the funny thing about that is that there were some municipalities that used 401 powered Javelins and Ramblers, I think, too, as pursuit vehicles. So, yep, I sure do. Troy is in the Pink Panther Challenger. Kind of an interesting looking car. Sovereign saying, have a great evening. And guys, with that, I got to wrap it up. Colt saying TRX is still cheaper than most college loans. So, yeah, no kidding. Sovereign saying Easter Sunday is an important day. It is. So with that, guys, I got to wrap it up. Hey, listen, get out there and do something cool for somebody because chances are they need it way more than you know. Love each and every one of you guys. Would not do this without you. And with that, that's a wrap, guys. We'll catch y'all on the next one. Thanks again. Adios.